When you're out on a ridge watching a hawk circle a thermals, or setting up a backyard birdwatching station for your kids, the last thing you need is a piece of glass that looks impressive on paper but leaves you squinting in low light. You want something that actually works when the light drops, that feels sturdy enough to survive a few bumps, and that doesn't force you to shell out for a high-end model you'll only use once a year. That hesitation is real. Spending a few $100s on a spotting scope that ends up being a disappointment hurts more than it helps. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review I'll walk through what the Swarovski Optik STS 65 HD actually delivers in the field, who will get the most out of it, and where the value truly lies. First off, the STS 65 is a straight-tube spotting scope with a 65mm objective lens. That size is often the sweet spot for people who want a balance between light-gathering power and a package you can actually carry up a hill. The 2060x zoom eyepiece gives you a decent range without having to switch optics, which means you can start at a comfortable 20x for general wildlife scanning and crank up to 60x when you finally lock on a distant raptor. The real differentiator here is the HD glass that contains fluoride. In practice, that translates to noticeably less color fringing around high-contrast edges. Think the crisp silhouette of a waterfowl against a bright sky, so you're not fighting a halo of rainbow color that can throw off identification. If you spend a lot of time at dawn or dusk, light transmission matters more than the magnification number on the spec sheet. The 65mm objective, combined with the high-definition coating, actually lets more photons hit the retina than many comparable 80mm scopes that use standard glass. In a field test I did on a misty morning in the foothills, the STS 65 still delivered a clear, bright image at 45x where a cheaper 70mm scope looked dim and washed out. That boost in brightness is why the scope feels usable even when the sun is low or the sky is overcast, which is exactly the condition most birders and wildlife observers find themselves in. Now, let's talk about the practical side of carrying it around. The whole unit measures about 12 inches long and weighs just under 2.5 pounds, around 39 ounces. That's light enough to slip into a standard backpack without shifting the center of gravity dramatically, but it's also solid enough that it won't feel flimsy when you're bracing it on a tripod. The twist and eye cups are a small detail that makes a big difference. You can adjust them on the fly to match your eye relief, which is a blessing when you're wearing glasses or when you need to switch between the 20x and 60x settings quickly. The only drawback I noticed is that the straight tube design can be a bit awkward if you're trying to hold it handheld for short bursts. The weight distribution tends to pull the scope forward, so a stable tripod or a sturdy monopod is almost a necessity for longer viewing sessions. Who should consider buying the STS 65? If you're a serious birdwatcher who regularly hikes to remote habitats, a field biologist who needs reliable, high-contrast images for species identification, or a hobbyist who enjoys occasional target shooting and wants a scope that can double as a low-light instrument, this is a strong contender. The lifetime warranty also adds peace of mind for folks who plan on using the scope for years. On the flip side, if you're looking for a cheap starter scope to just peek at the occasional backyard bird, the price point may feel steep, especially since you'll likely never need the high magnification range or the fluoride-enhanced glass. Likewise, hunters who need a rugged, weather-sealed unit for extreme conditions might prefer a scope with a more robust protective housing than the relatively slim aluminum body the STS 65 offers. One of the hidden trade-offs you'll notice after a few outings is the focus mechanism. The focus wheel moves smoothly, but because the optical design is optimized for high light transmission, you have to fine-tune a bit more at higher magnifications to keep the image razor-sharp. In practice, that means spending a few extra seconds after you've zoomed in to lock focus, which can be a minor annoyance if you're trying to capture a fleeting moment like a hawk swooping down. However, once you get the rhythm, it becomes second nature, and the payoff is a crystal-clear view that many cheaper scopes simply can't match. Another practical point is the compatibility with accessories. The 65mm objective thread accepts standard 2-inch filters, so you can add a polarizing filter to cut glare off water surfaces or a neutral density filter for those bright midday shoots. The eyepiece also takes the common 1.25-inch diagonal, meaning you can swap in higher quality eyepieces if you ever want to push the performance further. That level of modularity is something you rarely see in this price segment, and it adds a layer of future-proofing that makes the initial